recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror, movies, and awesomeness. This week we wrap up our Asian horror retrospective with the 1998 Japanese film Ring, or RINGU. Bear in mind that if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, creator of the Alex Van Helsing novels. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars and co-creator of the comics Psycom from Tokyopop and Clockworks from Humanoids. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Also in Austin is Drew Edwards, writer for Rockabilly Online, creator and writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man for Monsterverse Comics. Say hello.
I was made for loving you, and you were made for loving me, Internet. So just call me Dr. Love.
Nice.
You know,
take a sip of cold gin there, Drew.
I tend to record with cold gin. That's what gets me through that's what got me through Abraham Lincoln and the Vampires, or whatever the hell that was. And finally, also joining from Denver, as always, color commentary from the one woman who can tell what things I say on this show are completely untrue. Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, according to Wikipedia, Ring, also called RINGU, is a 1998 Japanese horror film by Hideo Nakata, adapted from the novel Ring by Koji Suzuki, which in turn draws on a Japanese folktale called The Dish Mansion. The film stars I really apologize, all right, ahead of time. Nanako Matsushima, Hiroyuki Sanada, and Rikiya Otaka. The film follows TV reporter and single mother Reiko, who is caught up in a series of deaths surrounding a cursed videotape. This movie took 9 months to make. It was made for about $1.2 million. It doesn't look it. It looks really good. And they also made the sequel, Rasen, at literally the same time. The sequel was released at the same moment, and nobody remembers the sequel, and that started a bizarre and very, I think, Japanese pop culture kind of thing where there are multiple continuities and timelines of the Ring series in Japan alone, setting aside the many remakes in different countries. So there's a lot to talk about in the Ring universe. As always, let's get our opening thoughts. Tony is our maitre d' as we make our way through the Asian horror world, really just dipping our toe in because we're only doing like 4 movies. So let's go Tony, and then Julia, because we're trading off Julia and Drew. Julia will say something, and then Drew, and I know you've got a lot to say, and then I'll throw in.
Oh, knives are sharpened, baby.
All right. I think that's fair. I think that's worth hearing about. So, Tony, The Ring. Why are we watching this movie?
Well, it's such a phenomena, for one thing. It and The Grudge, and they kind of started a lot of kind of similar things. And they definitely call it a phenomena of, like, you know, there's a pop culture thing that already was kind of there, but it definitely came about more so with the scraggly hair girl, like in white, and that kind of thing. And then, you know, the ghost stories in general, that plays into a lot of Japanese, like kind of urban legend kind of stuff. And there's also a really cool series of the split mouth girl, split mouth woman. And they all kind of, and that and The Grudge and all these things kind of have this similar kind of modern, you know, flair to them, building on, you know, older myths and ghost stories and stuff like that. I actually enjoyed this movie more than I remembered, because I think I'd seen The Grudge, Ju-on, first. It had been reading some different manga, Spiral and such, and it had been a long time since I'd seen this version. And, you know, unlike Drew, I actually thought there's a decent amount of, like, interesting things that happen, I think more so than, say, you know, kind of more modern fare like Final Destination and such like that, which was, you know, really kind of more of a Looney Tunes movie set to horror in the way it plays out. But I don't know. I think mainly I chose this. There's a lot of stuff out there, but I think Ring was such a phenomena, it and The Grudge, that, you know, we had to pick one. So this was it.
Interesting. I'm glad we did, actually. Okay, all right. Actually, I won't. I'll save my comment. So, Julia, Ring. Have you ever seen this movie before?
I have not seen this one. I am going to give Drew back his position of being the naysayer, and because I love this movie. It was so freaking scary, though. Holy crap. To me, it was really scary. I was, like, jumping, and I don't know. I just thought it was really creepy. I love the creepy sound effects. I love the creepy, I don't know why, but I was particularly affected by the distorted faces in the photographs because I'm a photographer, and so that gets me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I really love the effect of the the ghost or whatever coming out of the screen, which of course, having seen just even the trailers for the American version of The Ring, you know that's going to happen, but still, it's still great. It's still such a good effect. So I thought it was really interesting. I was riveted. I never fell asleep once, which is saying something because I usually do at some point during movies. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. So thanks, Tony.
That's the test.
Cool.
Is a movie.
If I can stay awake and feel scared.
If you can stay right. Very cool. Drew. So, but you felt less strongly about this movie, or less positive.
Well, when I originally saw it way back in, I guess it wouldn't have been when it first came out, but I saw it when I first moved to Dallas, so that would have been like 1999 or 98 thereabouts. I hated it. Like, I just freaking just despised this movie the first time I saw it. I won't go that far this go around, but I find the movie very, first of all, I don't think it needed to be a little bit more, like a lot more atmospheric. Like, there's so much you could have done with urban, and I guess we couldn't because it was low budget, but it just does not have, to me, like a very properly creepy atmosphere that I would want from a movie that is in fact this slow. And two, and this is my biggest issue, and this is my issue with this entire franchise, concept, whatever. Horror movies exist within their own realm of logic. We talk about this a lot. However, the people in these films, and I watched a bunch of them gearing up to do this podcast, are the biggest idiots in the history of horror film. So the main female character in that is supposed to be an investigative reporter or something. She comes across a videotape that supposedly kills people.
She knows that it kills people.
She knows it kills people. So let me finish the spot. Just let me finish the spot, and you guys can tear me a new asshole.
Yeah.
She pops it into a videotape. That is the equivalent of you're a teenager in a Friday the 13th movie just impaling yourself on Jason's machete.
No,
I'm with you, Drew.
I actually
yelling
asked
at the TV.
I would disagree.
Everybody I came across today, if you came across this video, would you watch it? And only three people told me they would.
Listen, here's why this is the way it is. It is not the same as someone impaling themselves. It is the same as listen, Drew. Here's why. Don't interrupt. Listen, here's why. It is the same as somebody. It's different. It's the same as somebody going, "Hey, there's a killer in the woods. If you go out there and you go, I want to go have sex and do drugs out in the woods where there's a killer." It's a totally different. This is also an investigative reporter. There's also an investigative reporter who doesn't believe that videotapes kill people because that's their job, is to be an investigative reporter.
No, like, something's up with this video. You're an idiot. You're a special kind of horror movie idiot.
So let me tell you, Drew.
Believe it until the phone rings. In other words,
yes.
Well, she's weird. But let me tell you something, Drew.
First thing. It wouldn't bother me if if even they had just thrown in a scene of her being conflicted. It's the first thing she does. Like, here's the video. Here's the videotape.
Well, that's what investigative reporters do, stuff like similar things, because you don't believe that something can kill you.
Yeah,
I asked no less than 20 people, and only 3 people said that they would do that.
Yeah, because we watch horror movies.
I have to tell you that Jason's number 4 because we had the same conversation. I was yelling at the TV going, what the fuck? And then Jason's like, I said, would you do that? I goes, yeah, I'd watch it because I don't think video tapes can kill people.
I have a long-standing thing about things like this. I don't believe in the Loch Ness Monster, but on the off chance that I'm wrong, I would not go scuba diving in Loch Ness.
Sure. Well, I told you the story about how I'm not going to burn that spell that some creepy guy gave us, right?
Yeah.
But I know people who would just because they're like, well, what the hell's a spell? I don't believe in that.
No, yeah.
I'm sure there are people that will do that, but that doesn't mean they're not morons.
Jason is the guy who wants to go spend the night in haunted hotels and whatever else because he's like, bring it on.
Exactly.
Nothing ever happens.
Nothing ever happens.
You know, and I what I would do is I would figure, you know, what I'll do is if there really is something going on with this, like if it has some sort of subtle, you know, Cronenberg-esque kind of thing that communicates with my brain and causes me to get instant, you know, cancer and die, maybe maybe I'll watch it through a mirror, you know, maybe that'll work, or maybe I'll like videotape the video.
Well, according to Ring 2, you can put it on, but you can close your eyes. So there are ways to cheat the evil video, but
well, even
my point being, long story short, I don't think it's the worst movie going. I find it incredibly frustrating, and I find the way the characters behave incredibly frustrating.
By the way, we do also live in a world where people still say Bloody Mary, and they do all the things that in no way as a teenager, I didn't do those things, but in no way as
Ouija board, totally, I did.
Well,
aside
from that, the way she treats her kid, that kid is so neglected. I find the way that people act in this.
She's a terrible journalist. I mean, but dude, that happens all the time with people who are career driven.
It's still frustrating.
It doesn't make
the behavior. I find that behavior of the people in this movie. It just makes me want to pull my hair out and throw things at the TV.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
The dad's the same way, right?
But the dad says, well, you know, is he okay by himself? But the fact of the matter is, I have a feeling that she's only slightly more independent with him, with that kid, than might be normal in the culture in general. I mean, we don't know. I know that when I was growing up, you know, in the 70s, it was very, very common for kids to be on their own most of the time. You know, and that's just not the case anymore. But I don't know what it's like in Japan. I
think there's more of a family thing, but I think the whole deal is you'll usually see that. That's definitely the signal of I'm a single parent. Like being a single parent in Japan is super tough.
I would
it's
say
usually
that was like somewhat deliberate on the filmmakers' parts because they follow that theme through into neglectful parenting. They follow that theme through into the American versions. So,
absolutely. Well, it's the theme of the actual ghost too, right? Like, you know, like all of the stuff that happens is through like poor choices in parenting and or raising children, right? And so I think that's a very common thing. Like, I mean, that it's supposed to show a career woman and have to do these things.
And having said all these things, like, I do agree with you. If you're going to do Asian horror, you have to do this movie. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, it became a pretty big phenomenon, like across the board, you know.
I like this movie better than Ju-on, actually. I mean, although now I've pretty much forgotten Ju-on, but I found that I've completely forgotten the American remake as well. And reading a synopsis of the novel, I find that I like the plot of this movie a lot better than the novel, which sounds like it gets kind of science fiction-y in a sense. You know, this is a very stripped, and this is by the way, my opening thought, which is that I like the sort of investigative reporterish mood of this movie.
Yeah, I like that a lot too.
You know, I like this notion that, you know, and I think, Tony, you were calling to it about all these movies. What they're about are people who live in modern Japan, who live in high rises, you know, who kind of live in a recognizable industrial new world. But the investigation that they're doing in all of these movies takes them into a Japan of legend, you know, even fairly recent legend, but, you know, a Japan where everybody dresses more traditionally, and it's like it's always just sort of over the hill, it's over there, you know, there's little towns that can go it's still almost the feudal past, and I love
Sure.
that stuff, you know. So in fact, I want to get to the funeral scene, but we should start. So this movie begins with a true celebration of teenagers telling one another goofy stories, which is you have these two teenagers who are hanging out at a what is her name? Komoko, I think. Two teenagers who are hanging out at one of their apartments, and they sort of are scaring one another with this story that they've heard about a videotape that they're very vague about what's on it, where they say, there's a videotape out there, and if you watch it, this old
Well,
lady,
they say that this woman says that you're going to die in 1 week.
You have 7 days to live. You have a week to live. And Tomoko is a teenager, there who says, oh, well, actually, I and a bunch of friends went up and rented a bungalow in, upstate, whatever. No, well, down in Izu. And we watched this tape, so I'm joshing around, but I'm actually kind of scared about it. But what's great about this is that these two girls are scaring one another. And, I mean, didn't this feel to you like every goofy hangout you had when you were a kid?
Yeah, that's the same thing. This could be Faces of Death. Like, oh man,
right.
You have that. Except in the same way that people, like, the reason I don't think it's totally out of the realm is it's what teenagers do. Now, whether or not the investigative reporter should know better or not, because she just doesn't believe it works. But what teenagers do is you rent, bad movies, and you tell people this, and if you say this, 3 times, this will happen, or you call on ghosts, or you go in this haunted house, like all that stuff is what people, is what
the teenagers I don't
do.
really have a problem with. It's more the way the adults who should be a little bit more skeptical and rational to me behave. Like,
I think they're being ultimately skeptical in the fact that until she gets the phone call, like nobody's going to believe. Yes, we've seen enough horror movies, but nobody's going to believe that.
The ex-boyfriend, like, even though she got the phone call and she's freaked out and everything, the ex-boyfriend watches it without very little hesitation.
I think
that was one of the things that I actually felt was handled better in the American remake. If they had at least threw in lines of dialogue of him going, "Well, this is poppycock,"
Right.
I feel like this could have been handled better.
Yeah, I think they didn't have to do that because he's so disinterested in everything. His attitude. This is definitely where I go with show don't tell. The American version had a guy going, "This is poppycock. I can't believe it."
I think with something this
one,
over, if I'm sitting there and that's bugging me, like I'm a big fan of show don't tell, except with some.
I think his whole demeanor is that.
It didn't work. It didn't work for me. It just really didn't work for me.
I completely.
Well, you know what? It didn't bother me. But I was throwing. I mean, it was more like when you yell at like you said about the going into the wood. They're splitting up. But don't split up. What the hell are you thinking? I didn't feel like it was a flaw in the movie. I felt like it was fitting in perfectly with every horror movie that ever existed.
Of a piece with them.
Yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. But I was definitely yelling.
But I think if you're Drew, you'll say, that's no excuse. I'm not happy with somebody using.
Maybe I'm too jaded. I don't know. Like maybe I might need to work. Like give my suspension of disbelief some exercise. I don't know.
I mean, there is a thing I like to do when I watch movies. If I can remember, where almost as a meditation, I'll just say, give yourself over to the world of the movie. What does it want you to take in, as opposed to?
Well, that goes into the other thing though. Like, I didn't feel like this movie was atmospheric at all. Like, if it had like this real, I was very enchanted by like Chinese Ghost Story and Mr. Vampire, and they had these alternate realities going on. But they if this movie had more of like a.
It feels Hollywoodish.
No, I'm not even saying Hollywood. Like, because I don't watch an Asian movie wanting Hollywood, but like, I don't know, something that like.
But I feel like it
drew me into it.
If you want to see that, you should probably see a movie called Wormwood, which I think will give you kind of what you're wanting. I think this is the whole A, it's shot on a budget, and B, to me, it's really weird. Also, by the way, because I usually am like. I'm exactly like you. Like, why the hell would somebody watch this videotape? But when I watch this again, like, I actually kind of liked it more than the first time because I was like, you know what, this makes more sense. And it's all, the whole thing is it's modern in a way that isn't atmospheric, and it's set in, you know, the city for the most part until they go, and the country is supposed to be the country. You know,
and I like
the
stuff in the country. Like, that's the part of the movie I did like.
And so I think that in my opinion, it was never meant to be atmospheric in the way that I think I'm getting from you. And again, like, when I saw it, and I love the countdown. Like, I like the build up of, like, their 7 days. Like, I think that's handled pretty awesomely as well. I just liked it. I guess I just liked it more than I had remembered, because I'm pretty skeptical. It's kind of surprising to me because I'm usually jaded about the same things you're talking about. When I watched it again, like, yeah, it's a modern city. It's about, urban myths, and all of it kind of, and it tied back to the stuff in the past. I was like, hey, that's kind of interesting and neat. It wasn't as eye-rolling as I had remembered.
You mentioned the urban myths, and as soon as that teenager we were just talking about dies, we then meet our main character, Reiko, who is an investigative reporter, but she's doing a fluff piece. She's interviewing kids. Clearly, this is just sort of fun for her. She doesn't know that her niece died of a related issue. She's investigating people who tell the story about this videotape that kills people. And she's talking to a bunch of goofy kids, none of who, it's all a friend of a friend of a friend. And all of this is really played up that they're all just drinking their sort of dainty little girl drinks and telling stories about this videotape that kills you. And
that stuff felt very like Scream to me.
I loved it. I mean, I loved how it didn't feel as mocking and self-referential as Scream. It was more like you would watch it and sort of nod and go, yeah, that is how kids are and how kids talk and how I talked when I was a kid. Just remembering.
It is like that. And it's also like how fluff pieces happen. Like, you can watch a million of those, and they're all pretty much the same as that one.
Yeah. I remember somebody telling me they had watched a movie where, like, babies were being killed. Like some crazy Filipino, women behind bars torture movie, right, that they had watched on video. So this is I'm, like, in grade school, they're in grade school, and they were telling me that they were certain that these special effects were so real, they must have found a way to torture actual babies and not, and somehow nurse them back to health, for the sake of the movie. That seemed perfectly logical to him, and it was sort of shrug-worthy to me. When you're a kid, you believe the craziest crap. And I love this business. It also plants us right, in the modern world. I like what Tokyo is looking like here. I mean, not Tokyo, wherever the heck she is. Anyway, then she goes and walks right out of, and I think this is beautiful, she walks out of her modern world into the world of the past because she goes to the memorial service for her niece, or the wake, or whatever it is, And and there she wears a nice, very, very humble dress. And everybody else.
Her niece, which is one of the kids that got killed by the videotape.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And and that's the night that she puts. And look, this movie is only 90 minutes long. Look how quickly it puts this stuff together. She goes to the memorial service where we now see her step into the more traditional world, and she finds out her niece was killed by the videotape. Now she's interested. Because her niece plus two more people were killed in with details that clearly fit with some of the crazy stories that the kids are telling. And what brings her to actually wind up, getting a copy of the video herself is she finds out that the kids, all of whom are dead. I mean, a bunch of kids who, all four kids who went on this one trip are dead and saw this videotape, and she figures out that they went and rented a bungalow in this. I love this place. In that, in the woods, or I don't know. It's in the countryside down in Izu.
In Izu, yeah.
So tell me about Izu.
I think it's an island, actually. Didn't it say Izu Island?
They call it Peninsula, but what is it?
It's called Izu Island or something.
Well, I mean, I haven't. I don't think I know anybody from there. Like, most of my friends the friends I have in Japan live in Tokyo. So,
okay.
I mean, but you get the impression, like, I mean, I haven't read much about it culturally. Sure, many people could school me on this, but there's a lot of like, oh, it's a coastal village, in the same way that we have, like, oh, those are, that place is Maine, or that place is the Deep South. You'll
Right.
encounter Cajuns in Louisiana. It's the same kind of idea, like, oh, farmers are from this place. That there's, as small as Japan is, it still has all of that, in a big way.
It's more like a resort.
Sure.
Place, like,
Well,
like,
so it's traditionally
really
fishing. Well, but think about it, Joy. In the same way that the mining towns around where we live have now become ski resorts.
Yeah.
Is you've got the people who back in the previous century, most of the people were really, really hardworking tradesmen working in really dangerous jobs, and now most of it's tourist stuff.
And this again plays into the whole, like, when they hear stuff like, oh, that's a dialect.
Yes.
The area, like, because there's a lot of like regional dialects that when I listen, in the same way that some a foreigner may not pick up on the difference between like a Georgia Southern drawl and a Texas drawl, etc., right. Or Cajun, they may not pick up. They may think it sounds different, but they may not pick up on it. In the same way that when I listen to Japanese, like, sometimes people are like, oh, he's from the country. I'm like, I wish I knew more about what that sounds like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're picking up on stuff like that I, unless you're really exposed to it, I don't know if you're going to pick up on that exactly. When they dub things, they'll often, like, oh, if it is supposed to be a country accent, they'll give them like a Southern drawl or a New York accent or, a something to kind of signify what that means. But in this, I watched it subtitled, so, I don't know exactly what they mean by what they're getting at. But the whole idea is, it's somewhere far from Tokyo,
Yeah, I mean, so clearly it's and I look here, it's a peninsula, and you called it exactly right. It's the countryside, and we can tell here. First of all, these kids went and rented a nice bungalow in a lovely little vacation resort in this area.
Sure.
But there's also these old fishing villages, and they show us that back in the 40s or whenever it was, it was a much more traditional place made up of fishermen.
Yeah, I mean, this could easily be Stephen King's Maine. You know what I mean? Like, where they have the thick Maine accent, exactly, and you deal with that, right? Like, that's kind of the same idea.
Well, that is essentially, when they Americanized it, that is essentially what they did.
Really?
Well, there you go. I don't think I've seen the American one now that I've mentioned. Now that I think about it. As uncool as it is to say it, I think I like the American one better.
Was it made by the same director? I could swear that.
The Grudge, I think, The Grudge, I think, was the one that had to do, like, the same person, I think, remade it, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look it up again.
Okay. That's right. I mean, I remember that about The Grudge. Okay, so I was thinking about that about The Ring. What's very strange, you said you read Spiral, right? So the guy who wrote The Ring wrote Spiral, the novel, and they made that into a movie called Raisin, by the way, that came out back to back with Ring. And then that created its own continuity in the movies because he did two sequels to that, Sudoku 3D and Sudoku 3D 2. And then they also went back and started over again and did something called Ring 2 and then Ring 0. So, and there's also a TV continuity because this is all just the Japanese, ignoring the American stuff for a moment. I'm amazed when Tony, you and I have talked about this wonderful thing that bugs American audiences a lot more than it does the Japanese, how they will just literally start a series and then double back. And
well, we've kind of gotten to the point where we do that. I mean, think about what they're doing with Spider-Man again for the third time.
You're exactly right. That's absolutely right. And with X-Men, X-Men just did a whole movie that erased like several of the films in that series because they were like, we don't like where we ended up going. I'm really glad for that. I mean, I'm glad that they're no longer feeling totally tied to where the films are going. Okay, so back to the plot. Reiko visits this little bungalow hotel. Doesn't see anything interesting. There's a TV there. That didn't seem to kill anybody, But she goes to the front desk to ask some questions about the kids, and she notices he has a wall to lend out videotapes, and she notices a single videotape that literally makes static when she looks at it. She looks at it, it goes, and there's like staticky stuff across the screen, and she goes, hand me that one. And he goes, oh, I don't know what this is. And so she clearly thinks, maybe this is the freaktastic videotape that they looked at. And so she immediately goes back to her bungalow hotel, doesn't even pause to open a beer. She just pops it into the video cassette recorder and starts, watching it.
I'm going to refrain from commenting right now.
Yes. No, you made you totally put forth your thesis that this is dumb. So she watches it. The videotape is about 45 seconds long. It consists of, Julia, do you remember what the elements are in the videotape?
Well, let's see. You've got the, I'm trying to remember the order. I remember the order. Huh?
You got the woman brushing her hair.
Right, the woman brushing her hair, looking in the mirror, and then it's like a little oval mirror kind of, and then she kind of looks out to the side, and then you see this really strange figure to the side, and she's clearly seeing it as well. And then you've got, I know you've got the well, like off in the distance. You've got we've got the eruption thing, which is like all these weird Japanese letters on and then the subtitle says eruption, but it's like they're kind of moving all over the place. And then you've got these weird people just kind of like slithering around on the ground.
Well, I think that they're crawling against heavy smoke.
But they're crawling like some of them are going backwards and going forward. It's very strange.
It's reacting to the eruption, I think, is the idea.
It still seems kind of
creepy. But it is
weird.
very strange. I mean, it's hard to hard to figure out what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, what else? Well, there's some more stuff.
And I think that's about it.
Yeah.
It's only about 45 seconds long. So when it's done, she's like staring at it like, and it's not even a horrified look. It's more like a, what manner of madness is this? What did I just watch? But
and why, right, Drew?
Yeah.
and for me, in that moment, there is no vibe that is telling her I'm going to die. But then two things happen. She sees a weird shadow of the girl in the TV.
The reflection.
And then the phone rings.
Yeah.
And when the phone rings and there's nobody on the other line except for that weird, like, metallic Trent Reznor sound that they do whenever something scary happens in this movie. It goes, when that happens, she's like, oh, my God, I have 7 days to live. She converts quickly. She very instantly is like, okay, no, curse, I got 7 days to live. To me, it's almost like in a movie where, I don't think Snake Plissken ever does this, but it's like in a movie where Snake Plissken deliberately injects himself so that he has exactly as much time as ever.
Don't drag the good name of Snake Plissken in this.
You're totally right. Because Snake did not, they injected him. He didn't do it himself.
Snake wouldn't watch the fucking video because Snake isn't an idiot.
Jason and I dressed up as Snake Plissken, and I dressed up because he had a man crush on Snake Plissken, and I dressed up as Adrienne Barbeau for Halloween.
That's true.
I don't think there's too many guys that don't have a man crush on Snake Plissken.
Who among us? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So now she knows that basically now she's got 7 days to do the investigative journalism that's going to take up the rest of the movie.
But the good news is that there's no more risk to her, so she can watch the video as much as she wants now because she's already done the damage.
I wonder about the rules. Like, if you were to turn the video off halfway, would you still die?
I think as long as the phone rings. I think as long as the phone rings, that's the clincher.
No,
yeah,
I think
but
you
it's
have
like
to watch
when you're like, fuck this is boring.
No, I think you have to watch the whole thing because remember when she catches her kid watching it, he's watching the last frame when she sees him watch. Otherwise, I think she could have grabbed him before he finished watching it. It would have been okay. So I think the fact that he's watching the last frame when she catches him is important, that he actually has completed.
I don't think you can stop watching it. I doubt that'll ever happen. I mean,
it seems to hold him in thrall. Like,
yeah.
So you're saying the video is hypnotic?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so.
Okay, I can get behind that. But I mean, again, like I watched admittedly terrible, really terrible. Like if I'm complaining about this movie, I can't imagine what I would do if we did a podcast on The American Ring 2. where somebody closes their eyes and they're immune to it, which I call kind of call bullshit on that. But
I don't know. Like I say about watching it through, Perseus is able to look at the Medusa by looking through his shield. I mean, sometimes folklore can have like goofy rules that can be really fun in that way.
Real life has that kind of rule. You can look at the an eclipse through a weird pinhole camera.
Yeah,
that's true.
Absolutely right.
Okay, fair enough.
Technology, I really, really love this. That this is and to me this is very Japanese. That this is a world that is in love with its own antiquity, but finds many ways to make modern technology be loving to it. They love making things be cute and anthropomorphizing.
Well, what's interesting to me about it being a videotape is this is a piece of technology that was on its way out even when this first was made. Look at all the DVDs already existed. I mean, they weren't completely taken over.
Yeah, Japan held on to VHS a lot longer than you would have thought, actually. And just there were so many, I don't know, it's pretty ubiquitous. In '98, I was still renting tapes. Definitely.
No, I'm not saying. I mean, since I said it was on its way out, it wasn't gone.
Yeah.
But that is interesting to me.
But it's also,
would the Ghost eventually find its way onto a DVD? I mean, would that be the end game here?
That's going to go like Insidious or whatever, and go back to 8mm.
Well, okay.
Speaking of movies I didn't like,
I think I think it's also something that I think it's also something teenagers might have, or a cast-off. You're more likely to have a VHS because even if your parents upgrade, you're still going to have a VCR, and your friends have VHS tapes. You know what I mean? That doesn't bother me as much because that's kind of.
I'm not saying it doesn't make sense I'm not saying it doesn't make sense for the time period. I'm just saying it is interesting to me watching this in 2015, thinking about videotapes.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
Yes. But I love this technology. The technology is part of the magic. That's what's weird here, and very sort of Stephen King-y in a sense as well, is look at the pieces that are a part of this story. You need a video cassette, you need a phone, and you need a television, and so it's all wrapped up. It's this creepy-ass stuff involving ghosts and old forgotten mysteries and things, but it's all coming out through this modern technology in our home.
Well, I like also because it leads to unlike Ju-on, which ends up kind of being just about a ghost, it kind of pushes more. You find out, I like how her investigative journalism ends up oh, we need to go reinvestigate that. Oh, there was a girl who predicted this earthquake.
Yeah,
and then,
but it isn't even her.
And then,
I mean, you're right.
And then pushes that forward to then she, don't you remember? She was the psychic girl that everybody revolted against and called her professor a fraud. And then there was kind of a lot more to it than I remembered. You've got the professor part where he's accused of being a fraud, and then where it eventually ends up being towards her sister, which again goes to the cycle of abuse and a sister who we find out through, again, the village is very kind of Stephen King-esque when you think about it, where they go and they're revealing and there's people around and, the old fisherman guy, and, what he wants to reveal, and he's kind of we die by the sea, and you could picture Stephen King characters kind of having that similar conversation.
Right.
Right. And then, come to find out.
The translation was obviously in Japanese, but the whole Play and Brian, Goblins Be Thine poem is very Stephen King.
Yeah, it works.
Yes.
And then, come to find out it's her sister who can will people to die. I mean that. Well, it was
the daughter. Isn't it the daughter of the?
Oh, the daughter. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's little one, and so so this is secrets upon secrets. It's okay, yes, that woman you're talking about existed. She was the psychic, but we don't talk about her.
She's based on a real character, a real person in real life.
Well, and then we go, but actually, even more secret than her, she is forgotten. But secret is the fact that she had a daughter. You know,
right,
and
right.
even more
I don't know why I
ambiguous-
said sister. It just seemed like that.
Well, no, but I'm down with where you are. Yeah, and then you know, through various, you know, but basically she brings her psychic Reiko brings her psychic ex-husband into this, makes him watch the tapes, and now they're both going to die, and so they're investigating together. You know, like.
Well, it's not like the kid had really parents anyway.
Well, you know.
Well,
He's
I
got
also
a grandpa who's pretty cool.
It's
so.
It's interesting too, like that. You know, they also play with the fact that he's actually playing with. You don't know if it's the ghost or, you know, you kind of get the impression it's the niece or whoever, like who.
Yeah.
You know, you hear giggling, and he's playing with an entity in a very kind of early poltergeist, early part of poltergeist. You know, so there's a lot of I don't know. As far as there's a lot of stuff that I kind of dig. You know.
Yeah.
Well, he says that his actual cousin is the one who tells him
to
watch
what I meant,
the video.
the cousin. Yeah.
Well, and he spots her when they go to the wake. He spots her walking up the stairs to her own room. You know, her ghost. There's ghosts all over the place in this thing. So they finally work out that yes, there was a psychic little girl who could kill with her mind, and she was also the bastard child, in theory, apparently, maybe not, but the bastard child of the psychic woman who predicted the earthquake and was a disgrace, and the professor who worked with her.
It wasn't an earthquake; it was a volcano.
Volcano. I'm so sorry. Yes, you're right. And so he finally beamed her with like some big tool and knocked her into a well to kill her. And that's why there's a ghost. Is this, in theory, this ghost is acting out its rage, you know, and you know, from down in the well. And so they figure, like all good ghost stories, if you find the corpse, you'll it's
very much like The Changeling in that. I kept hearkening back to that.
No.
I mean, maybe definitely not as atmospheric as The Changeling, but it kind of had, you know, a lot of that kind of feel like where it was heading.
The stuff in the well is you know, that stuff's nice. Like I like that part.
And I really love that the twist that it does. I love twists. I'm a big fan of
before we get to the twist, that whole section in the well that Drew was talking about is really neat because they go, well, if we're going to find a corpse down there, we're going to have to like dig for it. But now it becomes a logistical problem because by the time they get to this well, they have to empty it out, which is this backbreaking montage sequence of them trying to bail.
And they're running out of time. It's the week. They're coming up on the week.
Oh, so fantastic. You know, that all works really well. And by the way, Drew, I know exactly what you're saying about the general atmosphere of the movie, but for me, the sort of cinema verite look about it all just really works. I mean, I really love how modern it feels.
And again, maybe I would have liked it more if we hadn't just come off of like Chinese Ghost Story and Mr. Vampire, which had, you know, a period look to them. You know, maybe because I did like it. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it more than when I saw this when I was in my early 20s. I can't even. I could write volumes on how much I hated this movie the first time I watched it. So the fact that I'm even saying that there are parts of this movie that I like is a step up.
Fair enough.
I'm down with you. Look, I've had many films that just completely wrecked exactly the same way.
Okay, so can I talk about twist?
Yes. Okay, but first, let's just explain how we got there. Yes, we found the corpse at the bottom of the well, and ta-da, they feel like surely it's over now.
Well, because they survived the week. They're done. I mean, it's like the week.
Yeah, she survives, and she thinks because she put in true episode of Supernatural fashion, she thinks because she's laid the spirit to rest, the curse is lifted.
Yeah, her day, because she watched the video a day before he did, so her week is over. It's like she's past the full week. And so she's like, we did it. This is awesome. And so then the next day, her ex is at his house, and all of a sudden the TV turns on, and he sees the well, the video, and the well that they've just been at, you know. and he sees it open, and this figure in white starts to crawl out. It's so freaking. He's like, why? He's like, why? Why is this happening? And she just starts. It's just a best effect. I just love it's done so simply. It's just done with exaggerated motion. It's creepy. Like she's got her head forward, so her hair's in her face, and this white gown, and she's just very unnaturally moving very slowly toward him. And then the phone rings, and he goes to answer the phone, but she's still moving in the video. You can see behind it. And then of course this actually it's her calling, right? His ex is calling him,
right?
On the phone, because I think she's hearing everything. But then you see the woman coming out of the TV, and it's so freaky, man. And she's crawling on the floor. I just think it's all freaky.
Yeah, that actress.
And so then,
no, that part is cool. I'm not going to say it's not. And I like
TV neat effect.
Yeah, and I like the fact that despite that they've given the monster a sympathetic background, she still just likes to kill people. You know, at the end of the day, she's a bad guy, and that's something too often we don't. We lose when we empathize with our monster too much.
Yeah, I think
all bad guys have something of a sympathetic story. They weren't left. In fact, I don't know if anybody watches Glee. That'll be my my endorsement for the week. Is that this episode of Glee? They give you a taste of why Sue Sylvester is so evil. It's because Carol Burnett was her mother who never loved her, but she's still evil. Anyway, so we've got the evil, the bad guy, whatever. She comes out. TV, she's coming toward him, and then you just see him. He kind of stumbles around. He finally ends up he's kind of trapped, and he's looking at her upside down, and he makes the face that all the corpses have, which is just the horror face with the mouth, open. And then it just kind of does this cool black and white, shot of, and it freezes him. So of course the other main character is hearing all this on the phone and runs over there, and by the time she gets there, they've already found the corpse, and I don't know why they moved that body fast. He's like, they already took the body away. I'm like, how long did it take her to get to his house? But anyway, so
Japanese efficiency, man.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, what did I do that he didn't do? What did I do that he didn't do? What I did? And she realizes she copied the video and shared it. So that becomes the thing now that everybody's saying now, added on to the urban legend, is you won't die as long as you copy the video and share it with somebody else. So that's going to happen.
This is pre-social networking, all right?
Yeah.
Pre-social networking, the notion that you have to share something in order to protect yourself. That
the fact that she's also trying to save her little boy, and she's going to give it to the grandpa, which is really perverse.
But, Drew, it seems to me that there's a possibility she's going to ask the grandpa to do it willingly, which he probably will do. I think that...
I think she's going to try, but I think in Japan that's probably not out of the realm.
Yeah, but she says, I need you to do me a favor for my son,
Yeah, I think she's going to say, listen, I hate to do this, but I need you to sacrifice your life for your grandson, and I think he would go, absolutely.
And then he has a choice, by the way. Grandpa has a choice of copying it and sharing it, too, if he decides he'd rather live and everybody else die.
Well, and the way this movie's set up, he'll probably be like, sure, pop some popcorn. Let's watch the evil video.
I mean, the fact is, though, that we do find out what happens. There is another movie. I mean, look, there's a sequel. I'm talking about Ring 2. There's Raisin. Raisin does come out a little while later and show what happens next. I haven't seen it, and I don't know if it's any good, but, there's an answer. You read Spiral, so maybe Tony.
I read the manga, but it's been a while, so I assume that there was a lot of it. There's a lot of manga and a lot of stuff.
Well, this franchise has far more of a fan base than I realized, because there's a whole wiki page for it online that I was looking at when I was boning up for this podcast.
People love things that get enormously complicated. So anything where you've got multiple timelines and multiple versions is...
Oh, and we haven't talked about the really cool part where the psychic, the ex is actually tapping into what happened in the past, and it's all this great, old-timey footage, but because he sees that the father is there, but it's really cool because I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the names of the main characters, but
you can just call her the reporter.
Yeah, the reporter is actually in the scene because she's psychically connected. She's like he's connected her in, basically looped her into this.
Because he's touched her.
Vision. Yeah, he's touching her.
He can share his visions with other people by touching
Which is
them.
pretty cool.
Great, yeah.
And so she's seeing all this too. And so at some point, the young girl who is the one who's killing everybody grabs her arm in the vision, and the actual marks are on her arm in real life. And there's just all this really great stuff. These little details are just so interesting. I really enjoyed it.
The fact that he's psychic and yet it does nothing to save him.
Yeah. Well, that's inevitability.
It's cool though.
Cool.
What's interesting is in the American one, the little boy is the psychic one, and the husband's just a schmuck.
The little boy, right? I mean, in this one, the little boy and the husband are both psychic. That's what they share. Yeah, I mean, I guess I need to watch the American one now to see if
it's not great, but I will say this, and again, I know this is not a cool thing to say, but whatever. I actually liked it better than the Japanese one.
Let me tell you really
I'm
quickly.
sorry.
No, that's not sacrilegious. I mean, I like the 1980s version of Inherit the Wind better than the one from the 50s. What are you going to do? Okay, so I was looking at the story that this comes from, and basically the story, the folk tale that this whole thing is based on doesn't feature this whole media and sharing piece at all. It was always about the woman who gets thrown down a well and is now getting her revenge on people who are alive. So it's funny because the concept of the ring is that there is a sort of constantly revolving ring of people infecting one another. But the folklore at the base of it has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It was always about the ghost getting revenge.
Well, the thing that's neat about the idea of the ring in the Americanized version, or actually say the American remake, is that the ring is actually the view of the girl from the bottom of the well. Like when she's looking up, she's seeing.
I forgot
They do some neat. There's some neat. I would say it's cool to watch them back to back because there's some neat variations on the theme.
That is interesting. Yeah. Tony, what's the word and if you don't remember, it's totally okay because this is a stretch. But okay, in anime, there's a word to describe a weird melancholic mood that Japanese stuff has where they're just sort of wandering and it's raining a lot, and there's sort of like an almost fetish for melancholia. And
I'm hard pressed to
does this sound familiar to you at all? Or is this
I'm definitely, but I'm hard pressed to tell you.
There's a word for it.
Yeah. Well, in America we call them goths, Jason.
Right. No, but it's and you see the moments in a lot of anime where the character who's in the middle of investigating like a killer cyborg will just take a train and just go riding around for like 3 minutes.
Right. You should check more stuff out. There's kind of, there's a lot of trashy stuff like this, as well as a lot of good Asian horror. There's some trashy Asian horror. There's one called White, which is similar, where it's a tape, Korean pop band there's a recording that can kill you. I think that's on Netflix. It was there for a while. I would suggest if you can, go, if you have a cool place like Vulcan or I Love Video or whatever you have in Denver, there's like I was telling Drew, there's one called Wormwood that's kind of atmospheric. There's a lot of cool Asian horror out there. Maybe we should have a recommendations thing on Facebook where we can start a good discussion of, I can send some links. When I'm not on Crunch, anyway.
Yeah, and I think we need to get more organized.
We should probably, start a cool discussion. I urge fans to, listeners to recommend things they like, and we can start that because that'd make a cool list. I think that's something that should happen. Both cool things and trashy things and pop culture things, and there's a. Just like there is in the States, there's a wide breadth of Asian horror. So don't stop here if this is stuff that you dig. And I wish we could do even more. So.
Well, I'm definitely, for what it's worth, Tony, I'm definitely going to probably be checking out more Chinese vampire movies because I've completely fallen in love with them.
I've got some stuff, and I can loan you some other stuff too, outside the realm of that.
Nice.
So yeah, so we need to talk. We need to hook up, and I'll pass you some things that you can check out. It's a shame that a lot of print or never came over. I have a bunch of some all region and some specific, Thai stuff from Thailand that got put out, and Chinese and Korean and Thai and all of the stuff that got put out in different regions. And I can loan you some of that, or maybe hopefully tell you how to region free your player. So.
Well, that would be swell.
Cool. Well, be well, and
you didn't do endorsements, Jason.
No,
yeah, letting you go.
I'm giving you a chance to disappear because I know you got to get to work. I didn't want you to have to wait around. But yeah, post your endorsements on the Facebook page. I think I also need to get into the habit of doing that so that people can say, "Hey, Tony recommended this," and I know we do it half the time, but I haven't. I'm going to try and make more of a habit of it. So, thank you very much.
Tony. Well, thanks for indulging me in this retrospective, and I appreciate it. Sorry I have to cut us early, but
oh no,
rendering waits for no man when you have a deadline. So,
all right.
Awesome.
All right, good luck.
You guys take care.
Bye.
Julia, do you have any endorsements for us this week?
Nothing really. I mean, like I said, I got a kick out of seeing
Glee. Seriously, Glee is your endorsement?
No, not really, but it was a fun episode because she's like revealed for all she is, and then it turns out that Carol Burnett is her evil mom who never loved her. So I thought that was interesting in terms of bad guys. But no, I don't have anything.
Outstanding.
Two things I've learned tonight: Jason is in the Kiss Army, and Julia is a Gleek.
Yes.
Well, actually, we're both Gleeks, but he's not. He started watching it before I did. And then I was like, all right.
All makes sense now.
So, okay. Drew, do you have any endorsements?
I have multiple endorsements. First off is my selfish endorsement. This coming Monday, that is March 16th, we are having the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, and as always is my annual way of actually showcasing bands that I like and genres that I like. I have Punk versus Rockabilly 5. I've been doing this for 5 years, which is crazy to think about. It is no cover. It starts at 6 p.m. It's at Flamingo Cantina. We have round 1 at 7 p.m., which is female-fronted rockabilly band Ruby Dee and the Snake Handlers versus Blaxploitation, which is a all-African-American electro-punk band. And if you have not seen them, they are phenomenal. Round 2, starting at 9 p.m., is my girls Danger Cakes taking on the Drunk Punks and Sober Days. And then
I gotta interrupt you there to say I do endorse going to see Danger Cakes here in Denver this weekend, which we're gonna go to.
I was gonna get to that.
Well, I'm saying that I also endorse that.
Well, I appreciate it. And then round 3, which is at 11 p.m. That's San Antonio psychobilly band The Lucky Odds versus boy band Sniper 66. So I've got some of the best local punk and rockabilly on this bill. This is going to be awesome. If Tony was here, he would tell you about the time he played Punk versus Rockabilly with Bakari Shred. It's a lot of fun every year. Please come out. Again, totally free. You're getting 6 bands for no cover, so just come out, fight the South by Southwest insanity, and just come see some good Texas music. Yes, as Julia is saying, Danger Cakes is also going to Denver. They are playing, I forget, but I will post the links on Facebook. But I know they're playing the Sidewinders.
Yeah, Sidewinders, that's right.
Sidewinder is, I believe, Saturday, and they are playing different venue on Friday the 13th, and I apologize because the name escapes me at the moment, but I will post that on the Facebook. And if you are one of our Denver listeners, please come out and see Danger Cakes. Jamie has done the podcast a lot of times. You've naturally heard me talk about Danger Cakes a lot. Here's your chance to see what that is all about. If you like good toe tapping, rock and roll type music, it's good for you. It's good to dance, you know. And I believe the Friday show is all ages, so you can bring your kids if you want. My third endorsement is also in Austin on Friday the 13th, this Friday. At Spider House Ballroom, the Austin Horror Society is showing Friday the 13th, Part 2. It is only going to be $5, and I'm going to be there. I'm going to try and drag Tony. If you are a listener and you go into that, please come by and say hey. We'd appreciate that. But that is also going to be a lot of fun. And that does it for me this week.
Wow. No, that was fantastic, and I can't wait to see Danger Cakes. I'm serious. So
again, you know they're awesome. We've seen them.
Oh, for sure. All right. My only endorsement is something I posted recently on the page that I really love. So you guys may know, and I don't know if we'll ever do a retrospective of this, but I'm a huge fan of Jean Rollin, who made a bunch of like Euro horror. I don't know how you best put this. I mean, he made a bunch of like sexy vampire movies in the 60s and 70s. This is like before porn was legal. The way you got nudity into movies was by slipping it into horror movies. And so he made a bunch of vampire movies where the vampires were often running around naked. And so they're a wonderful time capsule of like 60s Euro trash sensibility. Great stuff. So there's a documentary about Jean Rollin from a series called Erotica, which I think is hilarious. Erotica, Virgins and Vampires, the Films of Jean Rollin, episode 1 of that series. So I posted an image of it recently. It is hilarious and cool, and you know, I love me some Euro trash. So that is my only endorsement of the week. Gosh, it's been really great to touch on
well, this is something we should definitely go back to. I mean, we say that about almost every retrospective that we do. It's like, oh man, we could have done so much more. But this is definitely one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a feeling we'll do another set of them in the same way that we've done. We're going to return soon to Stephen King, and in fact, I will go ahead and announce that in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to return with a Stephen King two-parter. And I won't say what it is yet.
But are we taking the next 2 weeks for spring break?
We are taking the next 2 weeks for spring break. Everybody can go down to Fort Lauderdale and make fools of themselves. You have my blessing, but I want you all to meet back here in 2 weeks' time.
Better Fort Lauderdale than Camp Crystal Lake.
Yes. No kidding.
And don't watch any cursed videos.
And don't go into the woods if there's a killer there.
Don't do none of those things.
Don't split up in the haunted house.
Yeah.
Don't go snorkeling in Loch Ness.
Do not mistake a flashlight for a weapon.
And if you're a teenager, don't have sex.
Right. Yeah. That's right. that solves all things.
There you go.
So.
And I think we can rule out vacationing in Transylvania.
Okay.
Right. It turns out, by the way, that if you are a female not having very much sex and you have like maybe spiky hair and a male-sounding name like Ricky, you'll probably survive. So actually, you can kind of do whatever you want, except for any of those things that we just mentioned. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you soon.
Good night, John Boy.
Adios. Bye, guys.
Night.